Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Taiwan says China has launched several ballistic missiles into waters around Taiwan's northeast and southwest coasts. The launches are part of live-fire military drills, China's biggest ever in the region around the island. Several Dongfeng ballistic missiles were fired into waters around Taiwan's northeast and southwest coasts. Some of the affected areas are just 12 miles off the island, the closest Beijing's military exercises have ever come. Taiwan says the move, which stops ships and planes from using the space, violates its sovereignty and amounts to a blockade. It's after the Speaker of the House of Representatives visited the island, the highest-ranking US official to visit Taiwan in 25 years. Foreign Minister Wang Yi described her stop on the island as manic, irresponsible and irrational. On an official trip to New Zealand, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the United States opposes any efforts to change the status quo in Taiwan.
We oppose any unilateral efforts to change the status quo, especially by force. We remain committed to our One China policy, guided by our commitments under the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 communiques, and the 6 assurances. And I want to emphasize, nothing has changed about our position. And I hope very much that Beijing will not manufacture a crisis or seek a pretext to increase its aggressive military activity.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for oil and gas companies to face special taxes. His comments come as surging energy prices sparked by the war in Ukraine push industry profits to new highs. Mr. Guterres said it was immoral for firms to be profiting from the crisis. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February has worsened a global shortage of oil and gas, disrupting access to oil and gas from Russia, a major supplier, and driving prices higher.
It is immoral for oil and gas companies to be making record profits from this energy crisis on the back of the poorest people and communities and at a massive cost to the climate.
The Bank of England has raised interest rates by the most in 27 years, despite warning that a long recession is on its way as it rushed to smother a rise in inflation which is now set to top 13%. Reeling from a surge in energy prices caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee voted 8-1 for a half a percentage point rise in bank rates to 1.75%, its highest level since late 2008.
You voted to increase bank rate by 0.5 percentage points to 1.75%.
Governor Andrew Bailey said all options were on the table for the Bank of England's next meeting in September and beyond. A Senegalese opposition leader has called on supporters to be ready to defend their votes by any means, accusing the ruling party of President Macky Sall of wanting to steal an election the opposition claims to have won. Opposition leader Ousmane Sonko said in a news conference that Macky Sall wants to confiscate our victory, but we will not accept it. Last year, violent protests broke out after Ousmane Sonko was arrested on rape charges. He denies the allegations, which he says are politically motivated. Data from the European Union's Joint Research Centre shows that wildfires raging through Europe this summer have burnt the second largest area on record. A dozen European countries have suffered major blazes this year, forcing thousands to evacuate and destroying homes and businesses. Countries including Italy, Spain and France still face extreme fire risk. Wildfires have burned over 600,000 hectares in the EU countries this year so far. That ranks as the second highest total for any year since 2006, when records began. And finally, 2/3 of Australia's Great Barrier Reef have showed the largest amount of coral cover in 36 years, but the reef remains vulnerable to increasingly frequent mass bleaching. In its annual report, the Australian Institute of Marine Sciences said it found that recovery in the central and northern stretches of the UNESCO World Heritage listed site contrasted with the southern region, where there was a loss of coral cover due to crown of thorns starfish outbreaks. In a key measure of reef health, AIMS defines hard coral cover of more than 30% as high value based on its long-term surveys of the reef. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.